And now joining me now is a RISE analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi, to have this conversation. Thank you for joining us on Newsnight. I mean, the increasing interference of governors in the selection of, traditional rulers has become contentious. I mean, just as you heard in that report, the case in Kano and, of course, the case in Oyo. And I'm sure there are other reports as well that has also captured events around the country. So the question of whether the traditional institution is still powerful or not, it's debatable. But what do you think is driving this trend, and why is it such an issue, especially when you see the increased interference of governors in traditional institutions?
I think we can start by saying, are traditional institutions powerful, or are they perhaps colorful? So I would say perhaps they are more colorful than powerful. There is a lot of pomp and pageantry surrounding them, especially those who now call first class, that mentioned the Sultan, the Oba of Benin, the Oni, the Obi of Onitsha, and several others. But in terms of powerfulness, and there's a historical explanation of this, traditional institutions have gone through stages. First stage is, of course, the stage of, if you like, sovereignty. They existed before the colonial authorities. Some of them were in existence. And so the colonial authorities came in and what we call domesticated, controlled the way they did with culture. So in that sense, each of them now stay at the sufferance of the colonial authority. So the colonial authority subjugated, traditional authorities, recognize them, but at the same time subordinate them to the English law.
They are
and
answerable to
yes. English law. So allow them accommodation. So that's an accommodationist period. And then we go to, of course, when they started the political process, the House of Chiefs. There was also asymmetry in the northern part of this country. We saw the House of Chiefs in the north. We had three regions. The northern region was more powerful. In the southern region, maybe so. But in the east, we saw effort to engraft what they call warrant chiefs, and that led to the Women Right to 29. And of course, the colonial authorities have to go back and revise and say, if women can fight these so-called potentates, they're not really truly, chieftains. So they need to look for other chiefs. So what's the point? The point is that we've seen continuous reduction in, first, the relevance, and two, the power authority of traditional institutions. We're now in an era where they are not subject to law. And it looks like the appointed authority in where chieftaincy issues are now state basically reserved for the states. And so the governors made the appointment. Now, you would say that maybe the governor will formal appointment, so maybe the traditional institutions decide on who to appoint. The governor basically confers state recognition. But what is going on now is beyond mere conferment of recognition. Initially called recognition. So the people elect their leader, or those who have historical lineage, become the Oba or Oni or Obi or Eze. And then what the governor does is to recognize, and that's tool, and issue a certificate of recognition. But what is happening? The governors are appointing. And so whether it's Kano, the Kano issue was very clear. Ganduje and Kwakwanzo were together then, and they throughout they have to give it to Sanusi to spite Jonathan, basically. Erofai, all of them were part of the Friends. It was together. Now, down the line, conflict exists, developed. He not only removed Sanusi, but almost balkanized the emirate, and then appointed Adebayor, okay? And now, a new government that is perhaps is now against Ganduje and more prone to, like Sanusi, comes back, reverses that decision, executive decision to balkanize, put them back together, and reappoints Sanusi, and that's why we're in court. So just like Oyo now, none of this is determined by a natural process or customary, so to say. Yes, both Sanusi and Adebayor can claim, a pathway to ascending to the throne based on some royalty and ties. But essentially, what decides who gets there is the governor's exercise of executive power. So in a sense today, there are no real traditional authorities, but as allowed by state law and allowed by the governors, who control the National House of Assemblies, who can make the laws, amend We saw when Governor Soludo himself, had to penalize some traditional rulers in another state for supposedly, perhaps, offering chieftaincy to somebody or other issues. So we are where we are today, where the chieftaincy institutions are now bastardized. They are now basically subordinated to, lower in authority to the governor and to the commissioner. In fact, in many places, the commissioner for chieftaincy controls them. That's the anomaly. So, they are big in pageantry. They are big in ceremony, are big in history, but very low, very small in real power.
And there are conversations whether the traditional rulers themselves, if they have power or what the little or more to do about it. But again, there are also, concerns, or will I say, call to inculcate or integrate traditional institution in governance. And because they have been seen as a custodian of culture and integrity, again, that question still remains whether they can be trusted. But again, let's look at how involved should they be, in governance and in politics, really.
I think this confusion is a legacy of colonialism, basically. If you ask me, the cultural domain should be separate so we're a democracy. And so anybody who represents us should come from former process of election. So that's why I have the governors, the House of Assembly members, whether they rig the election or not, the whole issue that we elected them. The chieftain institutions, the cultural institutions should stay by themselves. So the legitimacy should be sourced by the people's acknowledgement. And so we should have a clear domain. I'm not in support of saying, let's give a formal constitutional role to whether advisory, to traditional rulers. I think there are a lot to do with tradition. And so places where people have tradition, I give an example. In many of the Igbo communities where they have autonomous community and chiefs and those are honorific. There's no real traditional history to those things. There are no substance. So if you ask me now, should my traditional ruler in my community, who is just honorific, we just give somebody something to wear on special days, should he be the one exercising authority? On what basis? Who elected him? So I think there's incoherence in the way we are thinking around these institutions.
Quickly react to this before I let you go. I mean, the issue of issuing of staff of office in the government house to the Alafia for you, as we've seen captured by that report.
It destroys culture.
So how do we manage that? So what does it portend between the relationship between the traditional council or ruler or institution and the government?
It's disruptive. Basically, it doesn't flow from tradition. It ought to be at the place where the coordination happens with Kingmaker. But what he has done is to say, I appointed this guy, not you guys. So this is a dramatic display of the fact that the governor is saying the Alaafin exists purely, not by history of kingmakers or all the stories and all the rituals, purely by excess of executive power under Section 5. He issued that certificate in the government house, telling the story that I made him Alaafin. And that could pitch him in war with the traditional kingmakers. But the point is this: we need to be clear what we want. If we want to have traditional institutions, they should not be recognized by state authority. They should exist in a different domain, what we call private cultural domain. So the Alaafin shouldn't need to be recognized by state authority. The Alaafin exists by virtue of the culture, tradition, and the recognition legitimacy of the institutions. So he exists. If the governor can go to him and talk to him if he wants. Right. But if you say Alaafin exists, or governor should give him whatever you call a certificate, that basically tells us. And that's what the governor has done. I created him. I give him the power. And that's
I think it's a conversation that is ongoing, and perhaps we'll have to, just raise an idea there that needs to be, become an issue to debate going forward. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sam Amadi, Director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Thank you for coming on Newsnight.
Thank you.